That morning seemed like any other when the popular British morning show Lorraine went live. The audience was excited because the day's special guest was none other than legendary actor Michael Caine, a man admired for his long career, charm, and wisdom. Everyone expected a warm, nostalgic interview filled with stories from his decades in film. The cameras rolled, the lights brightened, and viewers at home settled in for what should have been an unforgettable appearance. No one, however, could have predicted how quickly the pleasant atmosphere would spiral into chaos, making it one of the most controversial episodes in the show's history. As Michael Caine took his seat, he offered his trademark smile, but there was something uneasy in his eyes. Lorraine Kelly, as always, began with a soft and friendly introduction, but her very first question struck a nerve. She brought up a recent comment Michael had made in the press, one that had caused waves of criticism. For a moment he was silent, then his tone shifted sharply. His reply was firm, almost defensive, a complete contrast to the cheerful opening. The audience could feel the tension building, realizing this wasn't going to be a typical lighthearted interview. Within minutes, the polite back and forth turned into a heated exchange. Lorraine attempted to steer the conversation back into safer territory, but Michael was unrelenting. He insisted the media had twisted his words, and he accused the show of doing the same. Lorraine, maintaining her professional composure, disagreed gently, but her attempts only seemed to fuel his frustration. His voice rose, cutting her off mid-sentence, and for the first time in his career, viewers saw Michael Caine not as the calm, collected gentleman they knew, but as a man visibly angered and unwilling to back down. Behind the cameras, the production crew scrambled. The director whispered urgent instructions through headsets, debating whether to cut the feed or ride out the drama. Cameramen exchanged nervous glances as the tension filled the studio. This wasn't the kind of scandal the producers wanted, but it was already happening live on air. Michael's words grew sharper, his gestures more forceful, while Lorraine tried desperately to maintain control of her own show. Even the live studio audience shifted uncomfortably. Some viewers gasped, some chuckled nervously, while others looked away in embarrassment. Michael leaned forward, pointing slightly toward Lorraine as though challenging her to confront him. His hand gripped the armrest with a firmness that betrayed his irritation. The more Lorraine tried to defuse the situation, the more determined Michael became to push his point. Everyone could sense this was escalating beyond the boundaries of typical morning television. Finally, Lorraine's tone hardened. She calmly warned Michael that if he continued in this manner, the interview would have to be stopped. Michael threw his head back and let out a loud laugh. "That's the problem with the media," he snapped. "You don't want the truth. You only want the story that sells." His words echoed in the room, heavy with defiance. For Lorraine, it was no longer about television. It was about salvaging her dignity in front of millions of viewers. Michael leaned back and declared he would no longer answer her questions. He accused the show of sensationalism, calling it a circus disguised as journalism. Lorraine attempted to respond, but he cut her off once again, his voice firm, his eyes burning with frustration. A hush fell across the studio as everyone realized the situation had crossed a line. This was no longer just a clash of opinions. It had turned into a battle of wills. The producers knew they had to act. A sudden decision was made. The show would cut to a commercial break. As the cue was given, Michael abruptly stood up, shoving his chair aside. The sound startled several audience members. His towering presence as he faced the cameras one last time was both dramatic and unsettling. Nobody in the room could believe what they were witnessing, Britain's beloved actor storming off a daytime talk show in anger. Lorraine sat frozen for a moment, her face a mixture of shock and disappointment. Michael, on his way out, looked into the lens and said firmly, "The truth will always come out, no matter how hard you try to silence it." The words hung in the air as producers rushed to usher him off stage. The tension remained long after he had exited, the silence broken only by hurried whispers between the crew. When the cameras returned from break, Lorraine forced a composed smile and introduced the next segment, but it was clear her voice carried the weight of what had just happened. The audience at home and in the studio couldn't shake the scene from their minds. Everyone had the same burning question. Why did Michael Caine react this way? Was it a simple outburst of anger, or was there a deeper truth behind his explosive behavior? That mystery lingered, waiting to be revealed in the aftermath. When the cameras cut away, chaos erupted behind the scenes. Lorraine remained on stage, speaking calmly to the audience, while Michael was escorted to the dressing room. The production staff scrambled to decide whether he should be invited back or quietly asked to leave. Rumors began spreading almost instantly among the crew that Michael had been under immense personal pressure in the days leading up to the interview. Some whispered that he had clashed with other reporters earlier that week. Others suggested he was upset over a project that had gone badly. Whatever the truth was, one thing was certain: his behavior had just shocked the nation. As Michael sat in his dressing room, he refused to speak with anyone from the show. Assistants offered him water, but he waved them away. His hands trembled as he lit a cigarette, despite the no-smoking policy backstage. He muttered about how the media had twisted his words for years and how he had finally reached a breaking point. For decades, he had been known as the calm, witty gentleman of British cinema, but this morning he felt stripped bare, convinced the world no longer respected his voice. That thought burned inside him, making him lash out the way he did. Meanwhile, Lorraine tried to regain control of the broadcast. She smiled for the cameras, introduced the next guest, and carried on with remarkable professionalism. Yet inside she was rattled. This was her show, her reputation. Millions of viewers had just witnessed a moment she would never live down. During the next commercial break, her producer leaned in and whispered that Michael would not be returning to finish the interview. Relief washed over her, but so did a strange sadness. After all, she admired him deeply before this moment. News spread like wildfire across social media. Within minutes, hashtags about Michael Caine trended worldwide. Clips of him storming off circulated on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. Some viewers sympathized, agreeing that he was right to call out sensationalism in the media. Others criticized him harshly, saying he had disrespected Lorraine and embarrassed himself. By the time the show ended, the clash had already become international news, debated on talk shows and dissected by every tabloid. Outside the studio, paparazzi had gathered in swarms. They waited for Michael to emerge, cameras ready to capture his first reaction. When he finally stepped out, wearing sunglasses and a grim expression, the flashing lights blinded him. Reporters shouted questions. "Michael, do you regret what happened? Will you apologize to Lorraine?" He ignored them, stepping into a waiting car that sped off. The silence in his response only deepened the mystery. What had driven him to break his calm public image so violently? Lorraine, on the other hand, faced her own storm. Though she remained polite on air, off camera she admitted to colleagues that the experience had shaken her. She questioned whether she had been too direct with her questions. Her team reassured her that she had only done her job, but the guilt still lingered. That evening, in a statement to the press, she addressed the incident lightly, saying, "Sometimes interviews don't go the way you plan. I have the utmost respect for Sir Michael, and I hope he's well." Her grace only earned her more sympathy from the public. Michael's representatives eventually released a statement of their own. It was brief and vague, acknowledging that the interview had become heated and that Michael regretted the disruption. However, it stopped short of offering an apology. Insiders close to the actor revealed that he had been under stress related to both personal health concerns and disputes over his latest film project. According to one friend, Michael felt cornered by constant media scrutiny and feared his legacy was being overshadowed by controversy. The Lorraine interview, they said, was simply the final spark that ignited a long, smoldering fire. In the days that followed, debates raged across newspapers and television. Some journalists criticized Lorraine for pressing him too hard, while others argued she had been too lenient. Fans of Michael Caine defended him fiercely, insisting he had every right to defend himself against unfair treatment. Critics, however, saw his behavior as arrogant and unprofessional. The clash had divided the nation, between those who sided with the legend and those who stood with the host. For Michael, the incident became a turning point. Weeks later, he granted a carefully arranged interview to another network, where he spoke more openly about his frustrations. He admitted that he had lost his temper and regretted walking out, but he also doubled down on his criticism of the media. "I've given this industry my whole life," he said, "and yet, at my age, people still want to twist my words for a headline.